We are currently working with the Nigeria Immigration Service to design a system that would allow us to determine those that have not submitted themselves for repeat COVID PCR test at day 7 onwards. These passengers may be sanctioned with inclusion on a travel watch list or their electronic passports suspended for a period of time if they decline to have a repeat COVID PCR test or disappear from the isolation process. We will continue to pay very close attention to the issue of laboratory accreditation throughout the country as well as outside the country. And this protocol will be reviewed 4 weeks after to make sure that the results that we are getting for passengers pre-boarding continue to be reliable. And if there's a need to review this policy, it will be done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, National Coordinator. That brings us to the end of the segment on technical updates. We will switch over now to the question session. Are you ready with your questions? Okay.
Good evening, sirs, members of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19. My name is Yemi Adebayo from AIT. I have some couple of questions for the PTF this evening. The first, the representative of the NCDC DG, I quite appreciate the fact that you talked about providing PPEs for health workers and what have you. But I want to direct these questions to you, or perhaps the SGF can also answer this question. Providing PPEs for these health workers is a good thing, but their welfare as well perhaps is more critical. I asked this question based on a call I received over the weekend from a female doctor at one of the isolation centers. And she told me that for the past 3 months now, they've not been paid their allowance and their salaries. They had planned to embark on a protest, but perhaps the authorities concerned actually came in to arrest the situation. Are you not concerned that providing them PPEs to work without attending to their welfare will lead to a major setback in the nation's fight against COVID-19? Then secondly, I want to ask, we're already in the 3 weeks of the 4 weeks extension that we have of this current phase. If we are to do analysis, would the PTF confidently say that the level of compliance is high now, or are we still where we are? Then the final question I think I want to ask is on the issue of the protocols that the National Coordinator just spoke about now. The PCR test that you're requesting for, would it be that each passenger who are coming into the country has to do this test 48 hours to or 72 hours to, depending on the time frame? I want you to clarify that, sir. Thank you very much.
Good evening, honorable ministers and my colleagues. My name is Friday Okerebe. I'm a reporter with Channels TV. Let me start with the National Coordinator, the protocols that you just read out. I would like to seek clarification. We have cases where people, especially those who are asymptomatic, remain so even after 10, 14 days. What will be the fate of such ones who intend to travel into the country? Supposing they remain asymptomatic where they are and they have spent more than 10 days, would you allow them to fly in? Then my second question is directed actually to the Minister of Education. We have been test running that sector, the reopening of schools with the exit class students. And with my calculator, I think this is the 3rd week already. From what feelers are you getting? Do you think it is safe to reopen the whole sector for students to come back to learning? I'm asking this because I'm sure you noticed that last week there were so many agitations. Some students from the higher institutions, they protested in this town, and parents are also getting agitated, those who have children in universities, polytechnics, and other higher institutions. So from what you have seen in these 2 weeks, or 2 weeks plus, do you think it's safe to reopen? And closely related to that also is also a concern from some parents who are suggesting already that the federal government will think about giving automatic promotion to students so that Nigeria can now run an academic session of January to December. You know, we're running first term, September to December. That is the kind of calendar we're running now. They are suggesting that if you give automatic promotion to students, they can resume in January, and let us start first term from January. So our academic session will now run from January to December. Is that part of the things you'll be discussing with the stakeholders? Thank you.
Good evening all. Rachel Abuja from the News Agency of Nigeria. My first question is for the Minister of Health. So far, WHO has trained more than 50,000 health workers in Africa on IPC and hope to raise that amount to 200,000. Now, I would like to know what strategy your ministry has in place on ground to institutionalize IPC in our health institution, as current data reveal that less than 16% of hospitals in Africa, including Nigeria, scored above 75% on IPC protocol from a baseline survey. My next question is for the NCDC representative. What's NCDC doing to increase cooperation with states on sample collection side? My last question is for the coordinator. So Nigerians would like to know which novel finding or innovation around this pandemic as the federal government done that has shaped our response to this pandemic in the past 5 months. And this brings me to my next question for the chairman. So we are aware that Nigerians have shown their creativity during this pandemic with innovations. The latest or last one being a decontamination chamber by one engineer, Williams Gian, which many experts in Nigeria actually commended. I would like to know if the FG is having any plan to support these innovators for mass production of this critical IPC equipment. Thank you very much.
The Chairman, National Coordinator, members of the PTF, my colleagues. My name is Amaka Ude. I report for Arise News. And my first question actually goes to the National Coordinator. It has to do with the protocols that you've just reeled out to us. How many days before departure should a person go have their test done before they plan to travel? I ask this because we're still having the challenge of getting results on time in the country. And that also ties to the representative of the Nigerian Center for Disease Control, DG. My colleague and I, she actually had a test done not too long ago. The result is still not out, 10 days after. I remember you said you had developed that website where people can have a code and go check. That is not functioning. Please, we need an update on that because getting the results on time is really important to us. And also to the National Coordinator, staying with you, you did mention that those who eventually, when they come back into the country, if they test negative after some time, then they can go in. But those who test positive, will they be isolated with those who tested positive in the country in our isolation centers? And will their treatment be free, or will they be required to pay? And finally, to the chairman. Well, last week you told us that evacuation of Nigerians was going to stop on the 22nd of August, so that to allow the airports prepare for reopening for the international airspace. But you're still speaking about evacuating more Nigerians. Did that change somewhere? Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman and members of the PTF. My name is Mitaire. I report for the NTA. I remember some times back I raised the issue as to how you intend to ascertain the reliability of the test results that come from abroad. And then the response was that most of the labs abroad are trusted. But today we are discussing the issues. And you might be able to determine the labs that you trust in the country, the accredited lab. But what about those abroad? And that's why I'm still asking, are you going to designate some lab abroad where the test results will come from for international travelers that are flying into the country? I think that needs to be determined and ascertained. For the Minister of State for Education, during the lockdown, a lot of private schools took advantage of various online platforms to continue learning, and up till recently, many have conducted their promotion examinations. But this is not so for public schools, and many Nigerians are asking, how will students in public schools be assessed for promotion when schools eventually resume? Will they get mass promotion, or there will be sandwiched examinations to grade them? What specifically is the plan in this regard? And in addition to that, there are insinuations that school fees will be written off for students of